Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Bob Iger wins the proxy battle against Nelson Peltz. Rest in peace, Disney. Probably. Now, Bob Iger famously built Disney astronomically. He helped company get Marvel. He helped get Lucasfilm, aka the Star Wars franchises, and they did pretty good. They pumped out some billion-dollar successes, and it was pretty good for a couple of years. But then they got affected and they started to go down the road of politics and cultural issues that are very polarizing, offending on average about 50% of the prospective clients as well as their old clients. And Disney seemed to do the impossible. They lost money on movies, which is almost as astonishing as Ferrari losing money. Or it's almost as inconceivable as the government doing something financially intellectual. Like, it just doesn't happen. And perhaps my metaphor was lost there with a couple of those, but the case in point is Disney used to just print money when it comes to these movies. And then in 2023, they lost about $2 billion on these films. Everyone used to love them. It used to be something you could bring the whole family to. Now, I would not recommend it, because again, they've injected controversy and culture and political issues into these films and these cartoons, and they're having sexual themes and child materials, things that would even 10 years ago they'd get them canceled. Everyone would have said this is not child appropriate. Now, there are some people who do think it's child appropriate. Now, that being said, I don't think that is the majority of the market, and I think they are going to be losing more than they are gaining when it comes to offending people, prospective clients. Now, Nelson Peltz has a long track record of getting onto company boards and steering them out of politics and getting them to focus on their core competencies. In Disney's case would be make material that is uncontroversial that will appeal to a vast majority of the audience, which they had successfully done for decades. So Nelson was fighting and he was raising funds, raising capital. He wanted to get a couple seats on the board of directors to have more of a direct influence on the company. Now, thanks to Nelson Peltz, the company has started to cut some of the fat from the business. Nelson Peltz helped persuade Bob Iger, the CEO, to trim about $7 billion in costs over the next couple of years, which they have been doing successfully because, again, they are very much top heavy and they have a lot of layers they can get rid of. Now, again, it looks like thanks to a lot of commercials, campaigning, they've gotten most of the people who are the shareholders to vote in favor of Bob Iger and not for Mr. Peltz. Now, this has come to us thanks to Emma Thorne over at LinkedIn News, and they say, quote, Disney has won its high-profile proxy battle with activist investor Nelson Peltz, handling a victory to Chief Executive Officer Bob Iger. Shareholders re-elected Disney's full board of directors after a months-long fight. So nothing is going to change. The board of directors stayed exactly the same. Now, they say that Disney spent about $40 million to fend off Peltz, winning support of Star Wars creator George Lucas and JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. Which, again, George Lucas does have a great track record of making great decisions. Obviously, he made a couple calls that ensured his name will never be forgotten. I mean, he was brilliant to create Star Wars, don't get me wrong. But he also created Jar Jar Binks and a couple of movies that fly. Let's just say, and then he sold it to Disney, and the new Star Wars material, I mean, they're basically a joke. Now, they also say that while Peltz and his backers argued that Disney has been underperforming, Bob Iger won over investors by announcing a cost-cutting plan, launching a new sports streaming ventures, and exploring a sale of some TV networks, per the Wall Street Journal, which, again, for some reason, they still actually do own some of those legacy media channels, including ABC, which, with the exception of one or two major sports balls events, I don't know anyone who's honestly actually tuned in to anything on ABC in the past decade. Now, let's see here. It'll be interesting to see in terms of, let me pull up the stock ticker really quick to see what they've been doing for Disney lately. Because, again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting different results. And, again, they didn't change up a single executive or a single person on the board of directors. Which, again, they're supposed to be guiding the company to most profitable outcomes, doing the best thing for the majority of shareholders. I would argue they certainly are not because, again, most of the materials are losing money. Now, overall, of course, they're still a stable business. Just like Anheuser-Busch InBev, they're a multi-billion-dollar company that's very diversified. With Disney, a lot of the money comes from the parks, which are still pretty profitable. So they're not going out of business anytime soon. And again, we still have 50% of the market in terms of who, on average, are attracted to the new Disney. But the stock did go down a little bit after the news hit. Looks like its stock went down about 3.64%. And granted, market cap is $200 $20 billion, so it's probably a couple $1 billion of loss, but it did tick back up a little bit, going back up around 1%. So, I mean, overall last week, it wasn't too dramatically bad. But, again, I wonder how many people just sold their stock because of the result of the board of directors. They don't have any faith the company's going to do well long term. Because, again, nothing seems to really be changing. And even though Bob Iger has publicly said he wants to get out of he doesn't want to do controversy, he doesn't want to do politics. I mean, a lot of the materials they're making are. They canceled a couple of their terrible, I think it was, what was it, Marvel? Miss Marvel was the worst Disney film, or Marvel film, which they own, since Hulk, which was terrible, fiscally speaking. They actually lost money, which is almost unfathomable for a company that used to basically print money legally. So the business model today, I mean, can't help but think, I'm not sure how much in terms of resource allocation Nelson Peltz would have to raise or how many more votes he needed to sway, but the fact that absolutely nothing is changing, and yet they're losing customers, they're still not making a profit on Disney Plus, which is their streaming network, they're somewhat moving in the right direction, I gotta say that still is the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, leave me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.